Good afternoon, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for gathering here this afternoon, and welcome back to Brothers Round the Corner for the final episode in our series of Passion for Words events. We have 2 more days left of the Tranås Fringe Festival. The events are growing and growing today. Peter will be giving us a presentation shortly, and then he'll be running all over Tranås, managing all sorts of other events. And then, of course, tomorrow is the grand finale. We have the Michael Publishers Book Fair in the library, and more events continuing through to Pilsner Poesy at the end of the festival to close. But meanwhile, I would like to bring you back to Peter Nyberg, who presented an event very similar to this last year, a year ago in the Fringe, when he invited discussions of good practice and how literature was being disseminated in other countries in Europe. And he collated some information. He went on to write a very significant report based upon his activity in his first year in his current role for the region. And I think he now has the opportunity to give us a summary of what he's been doing and also where his plans may be to go forward. Peter.
I will try to do this in English, actually. It's a bit scary for me, so you have to be kind. No less, last August I started, as Dominic said, to develop literature as an art form in Jönköpings län. Jönköpings län consists of 13 municipalities. The first thing I was keen on was to get around in person and actually be a week in every municipality. In that way I could meet writers and talk to them and have a personal connection. When I was in Tranås, was the second of those municipalities. And I have no clue what was in the other, but as I think you have experienced here, it's quite a lot of writing, it's quite a lot of happenings all the time. When I continued, it wasn't quite like that, and I wasn't obviously expecting that neither. After I have been around, I wrote a report, and the report, in a brief translation, is from contempt for education to passion for literature. And I think that this line we move across actually real contempt for being educated or doing readings and doing writing to pure passion for literature. So, what I did in every municipality was that I talked with the chief for every library. I talked to the cultural chief in the municipality, and I was searching the Royal Library. They have a list of publishers. So I thought if I could find publishers, I can find writers. Because the first problem is I don't know what the writers is in Jönköping. It's quite tricky. And I wasn't searching for people like Hanna who grew up in Skillingaryd and then get out of the Jönköping region. Because the purpose was to work with them in the long term. So I needed writers that actually lived in Jönköping. So what I found out is actually what I'm in a brief going to tell you. This is the faces of people. The latest on top is the 3 writers that actually can live on the writing, together with performing, together with teaching on the writing. But that are all writers that can actually live full time on the work in all 13 municipalities. There are 2 non-fiction writers too that actually can live on it. They write books for school. That's a way of producing and selling a lot of books, so they can live on it too. An interesting thing I found was also the attitudes to being an author. There are 2 kind of people that write. The one who said, I'm an author, and then I do some plumbing to keep the economy going. And there was another type that said, first of all, I'm a plumber, and on my spare time I write some. And the interesting thing is that it wasn't depending on how much they actually earned for the one or the other. It was very much an attitude question. In the region there are quite a lot of publishers. I think there are, in the Royal Library, there were 572 publishers in the region, which is quite astonishing. But when you look at them, you find that in about 90 to 95% are individuals that give out a book sometimes. And then there obviously are traditional publishers that will pay writers to write and give out a book and do the commercial thing. And a movement that have been quite large is the hybrid between those 2. There are publishers that actually take money to give out writers. And the writers get the professional look on the books, and they've got someone who read the books, but they pay for the whole process. There are some educations in the Jönköpings land. Söringens folkhögskola. A folkhögskola is the level between high school and college. I don't know if you even got that kind of schools in your countries. The nice thing with that level is that they don't get grades in the usual way, so they can express writing or arts or other kind. And then some people work with their high school grades too. And there are very short course in Jönköpings University that do creative writing in distance only. Those 2 are the only two educations that a writer can have in the region. And there are some festivals too. This one, of course. Then there are a festival called Smålit, or Smålands Literature Festival, that is much more traditional in it's 2 days, and a writer come and be on stage for 20 minutes and tell about his or her way of writing, and then it's basically over. So I as a developer, I enjoy this much more, because anyone can approach Professor Hannah Algren and talk about lesbianism, or approach Calvin Wharton and talk about him, talk to him about literature, and that make you more accessible, and that is just great. In the autumn of 2018, there will be a festival for children and youth writing called Småbus. But that is only planned yet. There are some associations that work with literature in different ways. Kultivera, of course, they are, I think, the big association in literature. Then there are Smålands Writers Association that work in a much larger geographic area. The same with Smålands Writers Net. One association that I enjoy very much is Poetry Slam Jönköping. They do contests in 6 or 7 of the municipalities in Jönköpings land. They are very good at connecting people and so on. So that's basically what I found. Another thing that I found is two big problem areas, which I think that you should solve for me this afternoon. The first one is the attitude, the general attitude to writing. In this area, particular area of Sweden, I think that after speaking to people for 13 weeks, I figured that making money is the most important thing here. It's not being creative or doing writing or reading or make your intellect spin. It's money that talks. And when I talked to you the other day, you told me that rich people often want to have credibility from the cultural scene. That is not the case actually in Jönköping. They don't basically care much about cultural things at all. This attitude have some concrete outcomes. The second problem is the lack of associations that work with youths between 13 and 19. The Swedish school system is formed in a way that when youth get 13, they actually stop in a very concrete way, work with fiction in schools. Before that, Swedish teaching is very playful and very creative, and people can write stories and they fantasize. But when they become 13, something happens. They start to write reviews. They start to do scientific work, and they stop the playfulness. And the people that actually like the playfulness have no place to go. There are no associations. There are no nothing else to do. So you can compare it to a football player. If a football player just have the chance to play football during the gym classes sometimes, and there were no team or colleagues outside that, he wouldn't be much of a football player. But that's actually the way it seems in Jönköpings land for people who write. They don't have much places to go. So, the question, the real question, I think, is how do we solve the attitude problem? How do we work with attitude problem? Because I think that's is the basis of the problem with building literary associations in Jönköpings land. So let's have a little workshop, get together and talk for a while about how do we get people to like literature.
For the prestigious literary competitions in the region, that might be one way to build up prestige.
Yeah.
A series of literary competitions with a prize or whatever or something like that. So that might be one way. I just think of straight away. I'm not hearing any talk of literary, poetic, or prose fiction competitions. Like I know in Ireland we have the Patrick Kavanagh Award. Now I think that prize is not as good as it used to be, but that would be seen as, even though they only give €1,000 prize money, there's a prestige around the prize because it's been around for 40 years and a number of big names have won it, and very famous judges, Seamus Heaney, John Cameron, big Irish prose writer, and so on, and it gave an element of cultural prestige to the competition.
Yeah.
So again, I don't know if we could run something like that as a way, but it would take time. It can't just happen overnight. Unless you got this incredible prize sponsored by Volvo or something. That might make lots of people want to enter. So that's one suggestion. I do know, like the Ballymaloe School, I think hosts the biggest prize in the world for a single poem. The prize is €10,000. Now, I think that's probably pretty money-making enterprise in a way. And the Ballymaloe School gets mentioned all over the world in prestigious newspapers and literary journals because of this. But that business does like to be associated, I know, in Ireland with literature. It does have an element of cultural cachet that business wants to be tied into. It makes them seem more sophisticated and so on, and they like that association. So it surprises me in Sweden that this isn't the case. But anyway, competitions of some kind that could build up an element of prestige and a culture of writing in the region might be one way to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to add on to that, in Canada, almost every literary magazine, like Popular Post, almost every magazine has contests. They have maybe a fiction contest, or a creative nonfiction contest, or a poem contest. And there's two things that come from that. One is it builds your subscriber base, because people who enter the contest also get a subscription to the magazine. And the other thing is that you do sort of promote what Derek's saying. You give that sense of, oh, hey, there's some prestige to be gained from entering this competition potentially, right?
Yeah.
But basically every literary magazine that I can think of right now in Canada has at least one contest. Some have 3.
Might be an idea, sorry Jenny, just to say on that, it might be an idea to have a prize associated with Tranås at the Fringe in maybe 3 of your major genres, and it could be something that there's an award-giving prize ceremony at some point in the festival, and there's a reading based around the winners. So that would be one way that you could do it. So it's the prize is given at the festival in some way.
And
Jenny, yeah.
Sorry, could I just? That's also something that's done at the Vancouver Writers Fest, where they have a writing contest, and the winners are published in a local literary magazine called Subterrane. So they sometimes they even produce a separate kind of like a pamphlet with that could be detached from the main magazine, sort of thing. So yeah, that's good.
Well, I think all that is great, but I also think you need to have a public debate about the significance of reading, and reading well, because we are in a world suffused with fake news, conspiracy theories. It's dangerous. These people get caught up with these things because they don't know how to read, they don't know how to understand what they're reading, they don't know how to criticize it. And when you start treating language as if it's merely information for money-making purposes, then you are in dangerous territory, because then people can't criticize the stuff they come across. So I think to raise the value accorded to communication and writing and good writing across the culture, as well as the prizes, because otherwise those prizes will attract people who are already interested. What you need to be doing is developing a sense across the culture of the value of good words, good writing.
You could have an essay writing competition. I know you're interested in the critical essay yourself, Peter, so you could actually have a literary essay tied into your competition as well, which you provide set themes, like the importance of literature in the media age or something like this. So you start to develop a debate and a discussion maybe over time. So you could have a themed focus for your essay on the areas that you're interested in developing a discussion around.
Yeah.
So that's a possibility, you know. And again, you could have, say, if you wanted to tackle the schools, you can actually have a youth section to the competitions as well on these areas and the schools, and that would be a way of developing something there. Again, I think the more prestigious the prize and the more money you could probably get for it, you're going to find more people are going to write.
Yeah.
That's a sad fact, but that might be a way of really upping the ante if you could do it. If you could bring in some really solid sponsorship for a period and make the prizes worthwhile, you'd be surprised how people will pick up the pens and switch off their, well, they probably write them on their computers and start to write their essays or their pieces of literature.
Rate you above the jury then, yeah?
Yeah. Well, previous winners could.
Well, you started planning this with the whole bit.
Yeah. Like certainly, I mean, it depends how it went the first year, how much work you got, but like a team, that's all the practical stuff of how we worked it out. You could have a committee that screened or created a short list from a large body of entries. But you could have, it might be one of the tasks you could give your residents, that they would become the judges, or maybe the previous residents who know it might become the judges in various genres for your competition, you know. But again, like the bigger and more famous a name, if you could get a very prestigious Swedish writer to be your judge, he or she, over a period of time, that association would be important as well. Again, if you had good sponsorship, you could pay a significant fee, you see, to your judge, and that would add prestige to your competition. You know.
Maybe you're right about this with money, but the way I think of it, I also think it has to do with low self-esteem and not feeling that this might be something for you, and then it's related to a class issue in that sense. So I also think that that maybe to start study groups and ask people in, and maybe, I mean, study groups so you can also have groups in creative writing, because for example, when I read my poetry at Skillingaryds library, and I write modern poetry, and they were like, I mean, the last time the audience ever came across poetry was actually Karin Boye, because people were not really coming there. So it also means that, I mean, that the cultural, the possibility to come in touch with literature and modern literature and so on, I think we have to go out in a sense, or come out into also the small places, like a possibility. And I mean, I think it's a shame that the Social Democrats and the idea about educating has like gone. It's not really that ideas that are presented any longer. I mean, you can say all the empty Folkets hus, for example, in all small villages. And quite many years ago, we were a group of poets who were thinking of having like a tour, like a poetry bus. That I think would be a great idea, to go out in a bus and have readings, in small places. So if you arrange a tour, I will come.
Yeah.
That's a reason to arrange
Yeah.
That reminds me that we have some programs. Some of the writers' organizations in Canada support a thing they call Writers in the Schools, where writers will come into the school, do kind of a reading, talk to students. That's one way to sort of initiate a kind of interest. And I know I not as part of that, but when my son was in high school, I went in to the class and I had a little fun exercise. I talked about writing, I did some reading, had a fun exercise. They had a great time, right? And because I think a lot of because in Canada, certainly a lot of what kids learn about literature is it feels distant to them. They don't feel a personal immediate connection. It's something that happened long ago and was done by these people that they can't imagine what those people are like, right? So when you bring people into the school and you say, hey, they can see it, you just look like me, or you look like my mom, or you look like my uncle, or whatever, right? Then it sort of demystifies that. And if they have fun with it, it doesn't mean every kid's going to rush out and start writing, but the ones that are sort of, that might be interested, it may get the fire started in them. That's a good, I think that writers in the school thing can be a really good thing. Yeah. Thank you.
And maybe social media groups. I mean, you could set up some groups that people just share their writing on Facebook. I mean, there's a group in Ireland, Blackwater Poetry, and they do that, you know, so that people have a chance to just have build up a community virtually, even where they can share work. That's one possibility. But I know, like, the poetry program on Irish radio is very popular. I don't know what sort of media coverage literature gets on local or national radio in Sweden. You know, we have every week like over an hour of poetry. It's a very, very good show, and so on national radio. And I'm not sure whether you can break into media at that level in Sweden or whether it exists already. I don't know.
Oh, it exists. At 12 every day, there's a program followed by your music piece.
Right.
It has been a tradition from 50s or 60s.
I think it's the oldest one, actually. Berättar om
Dagens.
Yeah, I think it's today is the oldest radio still running.
Yeah.
Maybe from the 1930s.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's had a nice tradition.
Right. Maybe have a wider arts program or something like that, even in Jönköping. Is there a radio station to Jönköping land? I don't know.
No, yes,
I
they
mean,
are.
it's just
But,
like
they are not that interested in poetry.
if you were to get, say, some of your young writers lab people to actually onto local radio, again, that's just giving excitement and encouragement again. They have an outlet in a way. That's a possibility. You can break through into, even if local radio, it's not to be national radio, guarantee an hour a week or half an hour, start small, 20 minutes, where they can read something. These are young voices from the region. Then that's the type of reward that keeps the writers writing. They feel they've got something, you know.
Yeah.
I think the reading in the library was very good the other night. Again, I think you had young writing groups and they had, a showcase moment at the end of 3 months or 6 months or something like that, or once a year, where the best of their writing is put on display, and try and build that up over time. We need little carrots to keep people going and to keep at it, you know. I think Colin, were you going to say something there? No?
Change my mind.
All right. Yeah.
It will be just a bit.
I thought about that program you mentioned, Dagens Sitt, the poem of the day or something. They also go out and do that program on factories, for example, and different places. So it's not only a program that it's made in the radio studio. They go out on different places and make this program, and I think that's a very good idea.
Or know something from I do that's quite popular, maybe can be done around the region, again, it could be part of the festival or even something that was done. If your writers were to get like little poems printed up and businesses were to agree to display them somewhere, on sort of these little time cards or something like that. So in a restaurant, if you have to buy tea, there might be just a poem on display. Now, it would be nothing that would be stuck up on the wall that would interfere with the decor. If it was moved it around, again, that's something that people feel, oh, my poem is out there and people are going to read it. And again, if you get some funding for something like that, it might be very expensive to do. But that could be, again, poems on the street type thing, poems on the bus, poems in the restaurants, poems outside the business, on Tranås as people are walking along every day or something. It's giving visibility to the practice and so on, and you build a community. And don't you say, you might have white poem up outside Man Type or Eek or just somewhere like that. Again, that's just another idea,
Are there any lobby groups? Because I still think you have to address the wider culture. So are there any lobby groups that will press for the funding for this kind of thing? And what's their rationale? What do they argue when they want to get money through the government
Well, literature in Sweden is in many ways very, very well financed.
Right.
This region that doesn't have a tradition, so we're starting from scratch. So it's a beautiful opportunity to do it right from the beginning. You go to another region and it's full of writers. So it's not, we're not talking about a Swedish problem, we're talking about a local, regional problem.
Right, I didn't realise that.
Yeah, so it's the culture of the region just.
Right.
So this isn't a national issue in the same sense as, it is maybe in many regions, there's many other regions that work really well.
Right.
And there is an awful lot of money for
Right.
literature.
Tap into some of that. Get your fair share. No, yeah.
We're not giving back any money.
Is the second question also a regional question, or is that closer to a nationwide issue? The lack of associations that work with youth?
Oh, no, that's national.
That's national.
Yeah, it's the same for everything.
Yeah.
But then I think that maybe different in different areas that some people connect to the youth in other ways. Here it is a total lack of connection.
I think that's a wider problem. I think it's a problem that also exists in the UK. I think when we have children in primary schools that have a very inclusive approach to their education, it is very playful, particularly in small schools where year groups are mixed, and so they have to be innovative about the way they teach. But when they hit secondary school, that age between 13 and 19, it becomes very, very high pressure, and students may be studying 12 subjects, and within that they only have one choice, because 11 of those subjects are compulsory. And then when they ask students, do you want to be creative, do you want to try something different? Well, you've only got one choice to express yourself. You can only read one subject where you make a direction. And the Arts Council of Wales introduced a programme about a year, 2 years ago, called Creative Learning Through the Arts. So it engages the educational community because it's looking at the issues that exist, and those are issues of basic numeracy, basic literacy, and disadvantage for excluded students. But the concept is that there is a structure, and you have a creative agent, you have a series of creative agents who work with identified lead creative schools. The staff in the schools would talk to the agent, they would talk about what their problems were, what literacy problems, what educational problems they had, and then the creative agent would source a creative practitioner, whether that was a writer or a visual artist, and that artist or writer would work out a project to address the issue, and then they would enact that project in the school. So they're using creativity to address basic curriculum learning issues. And I think that's a model worth looking at. And if we can sort out some technology, maybe at the end of this we could play like a minute video that introduces that program.
Yeah.
There's also there's a sort of parallel system that was set up. There used to be, after the Second World War in Britain, they had things called the Saturday clubs run in art colleges with design. And out of those Saturday groups, all the great designers and a lot of the architects who then emerged into the mainstream, they came from those. They've all closed down now. So I'm trying to think who the person is, and I've of course forgotten, that he has set up an alternative cross-Britain set of creative groups, and I can't remember what they're called, but there's a basis, you know, in Carmarthen there's that theatre group, what are they called now? No, it's no use, I won't be able to.
Mess up the nest? No? I'm good? No.
No, I was thinking about that. They're across Britain, and they start at age 5, and they go all the way up to 23, because I wanted to try and integrate them into ours as well. They're nationally recognised. Stagecoach is associated with that. It's not them, but they've managed to get accreditation through that. these are nationally recognised qualifications which are about the arts, and they give you skills as well as the ones. So if you're going for a job, you can say, I've got a bronze in, a silver in, whatever, as well as A-levels, GCSEs, whatever you do, baccalaureate. And they have been devised in order to try to stimulate the interest in the arts, because the arts are being squeezed out of mainstream education, and it's so pressurised, the curriculum, there's no space to put stuff in. So that's something that they meet Saturdays, they meet evenings, things like that.
Yeah.
So that's quite a good system. And it can go right through the schools. There's a lot of it in England, there's very little in Wales at the moment. I can give you links to it when I find it.
Yeah, please. I thank you very much for your good ideas. Now I have to sit down and write. So thank you so much for listening to you.